we could win this war.
We can win this war?
Okay, well, joining us from Orlando, Florida, is the man in that clip, Anthony Dream Johnson, who says he wants to abolish feminism and make women great again.
No, but it also says, with the trademark, make women great again for women. Always great.
Make women great again.
But they're going to do a 3-day seminar for women led by all men.
In mansplaining news, a 3-day conference for women led by men hopes to make women great again.
How the 22 convention will make you the greatest you ever. Raise your femininity by 500%.
First of all, how is a man supposed to tell a woman how to be the ultimate woman?
But women need to be taught how to be great again. Not my words.
We do.
Like how to land a husband, how to lose weight, how to pop out a bunch of kids.
Why do men think they need to fix the problems of women?
Well, it says the world's ultimate event for women.
In Orlando, Florida, that's going to be the scene of the crime. It's mansplaining palooza, and say no to the toxic bullying feminist dogma.
Taught by men to make women great again.
Taking the stage now is the founder of the 22 convention. You're in for a treat, Mr. Anthony Dream Johnson.
Anthony Dream Johnson.
Anthony Dream Johnson.
The first president of the manosphere.
It's run by all men, which promises to, quote, make women great again. This course is guaranteed to raise your femininity by 500%.
Together, we will make women great again. Excuse me, I'm mansplaining here. She said there's nothing radical.
Welcome back to the 22 Convention 2021 in Orlando, Florida, the second anniversary, the second anniversary, the second going of a highly controversial event. We are literally in presence of somebody who does incredible things. This is a man who defies reality. He creates it. He has an idea and he manifests it. He aspires and he's determined and puts in more work than I've ever seen anybody do. And he's always had that reputation. This event is outrageous because we dare to do it. And I think that is a crying shame. It's a mark on our civility. What we're doing is we're having the audacity to speak to each other, and in particular men to women in this particular case with the presentations. And I have the distinct honor and privilege to introduce the man who idealized this, made it come to fruition, and who quite honestly is moving the Overton window within the manosphere and men and women's communications and dynamic relationships, moving that back to a mainstream position, to a more natural and sustainable environment. I introduce you to Anthony Dream Johnson.
All right, ladies, I'm back. I talked to you yesterday opening with the event. I appreciate you, being at the event, seeing those speeches. I've been in and out, seen a few myself, and I know some have been controversial, some are more smooth and mellow, depends on the speaker and the personality. I appreciate you getting through all of it and being here for it. You got me next. I know on the internet I'm known as this outrageous asshole. There's a lot of truth to that, as Socrates kind of pointed out, but that's only one side of my personality, and there's a balance to it that you get to experience in real life. And today we'll get to see if you see a lot of that. So my speech last year, my keynote, the main speech, the content speech for the event that I gave was called Motherhood First, and it was my initiative to begin a hashtag and sort of a small movement, kind of like Make Women Great Again itself, or even the trad wife movement that's not related to what we do necessarily, but is similar. It's pretty big on Twitter and hashtag stuff. So Motherhood First is my speech last year. It came out earlier this year. It's done pretty well. It's got, 20,000 views or something like that. So if you go check it out, I'm very proud of it. And the basic idea is that in America, motherhood is put last. It is put behind, second or third to career, advanced schooling, and all these things. And I think this is biologically unsound to the point of being biologically irrational for women. Because women reach peak fertility at about 22, 23 years old, and by 30, over 90% of their eggs are dead. They reach advanced maternity age, or by modern medicine, they call it geriatric pregnancies, age 35 and beyond. Yeah. And they call it, they still call it that, although they try to soften it up usually. They call it like advanced maternity age, but it's, you know, all the way through the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, it was called a geriatric pregnancy. And basically, at the age 35, the risk of birth defects goes through the roof. Down syndrome, autism, things like that, all kinds of problems, not just for the kid, but for the woman, for the mother. Childbirthing problems, pregnancy problems, nursing problems after the fact, all kinds of stuff. And obviously by 40, I think, or even by 38, like 98% of your eggs are gone, dead. You start out with a lot when you're young, when you're a teenager or whatever, you know, hundreds of thousands or something like that. But they wither and die. It's basically women are not taught in America. You know, you can go watch a speech for more detail on this, but young women in America are not educated at all, and they get opposite propaganda on top of that. But they're not educated at all that their fertility is heavily slanted towards their late teens and 20s, and it falls exponentially off a cliff rapidly. And a lot of them honestly don't know that, which is a problem because now they can't even make an informed decision. In a way, they're being deceived and manipulated through lack of information. I think to some extent this is intentional, and it's retarded. I really don't like it, and it's dumb. It hurts kids, and it hurts women, and it hurts America. So I don't like it. Anyway, that was my speech last year. So I'm not going to give a repeat of that. We're giving a sequel to that. And that title is Make Women Virgins Again. You might see that on my hat as well, of course. I thought of this actually randomly earlier this year, very similar to Make Women Great Again. That was inspired by actually another hat that was similar to that. I made that and I fell in love with it immediately. And Make Women Virgins Again just kind of randomly came to me. I was cooking up new hats, different ideas, like Make Women Cook Again, Make Women Clean Again, Make Women Fit Again, stuff like that. And then I was like, what about virgins? And I typed it out on the computer screen to actually print it and order it. And I was like, oh yeah. And I knew it would do pretty good, but man, I put it out and then I had it printed and shipped and started wearing it. And I was amazed at the responses. You know, I wear a toxic masculinity hat that says 100% toxic masculinity. I wear hats like Make Women Great Again. I wear these in public. Bars, huge conferences like CPAC in Orlando and Texas, all kinds of different venues, you know, grocery store. And I look at people's responses to them. But Make Women Virgins Again, this hat, amazing, next level. Even above and beyond Make Women Great Again, which as you saw with the media in 2020, they went nuts. New York Times, New York Post, Piers Morgan, reached 100 million women just by saying that, you know, men, we want to get together and make women great again, indicating that, you know, women in prior generations were in some ways better. They were more feminine, they were more healthy, less obese, all kinds of different issues. Anyway, we're going to get into this topic here, Make Women Virgins Again, but right off the bat, I want to say that it is not some born-again virgin thing. I'm not into that. It has nothing to do with that. Obviously, I would see if people would ask that, but it has nothing to do with that at all. I myself am not a Christian or any kind of religion like that. I'm an atheist and objectivist. There's a lot of Christians who speak here at our events, men, fathers, and women events, but I myself am not that at all. There's just buddies of mine, and we share a lot of common values. We get along pretty well. And I love seeing that, and I love these platforms being open to people of multiple faiths, different fundamental ideas about life. But we have common ground, we get together, we talk to you ladies. So today we're going to talk about making women virgins again. So right off the bat, this is me wearing the hat with a media pass, no less, no different from really CNN or people like that at CPAC in Texas. CPAC is a conservative political action conference. It's like the biggest Republican conservative event in the United States. That was the second one they held this year. It was a little bit smaller than the one in Orlando, held right here on our drive earlier this year too. President Trump was at both, you know, thousands and thousands of people. It was my first experience at these major political events. I also want to do a disclaimer that I'm not really a conservative or Republican. People assume this about me a lot, like they assume I'm a Christian because I hang out with like pastors and stuff and all these hardcore Christians, but I'm not. We get along really well, which is kind of amazing because they think I'm going to hell and stuff. I'm a heretic. I'm like, yeah, whatever, man. But anyway, I love going to these events this year. It was a real privilege. I had some buddies like Eric Carroll, who's in the back here, who had other media access to the event and introduced me to a lot of people. I really appreciate that. And it was an amazing experience at all the events I went to this year. We'll get into more of them. But anyway, I wore this hat to CPAC, and it taught me a lot about the different responses, like I kind of hinted at in my opening address to you. The responses that Make Women Virgins Again, and this idea, this thrust would get from different age groups, different demographics, different generations. Young women, older women, young men, older men, men in the middle, even some teenagers I met at these events. You know, it gives kids like 15, 16, so Zoomers and stuff. But what I found is, number one, in mainstream culture, there's like this meme that Zoomers, these young kids, are based and they're savage, and Boomers are like old and decrepit and like dumb. And I actually found the opposite. I found later in the year, we'll get into in a minute, I went to a non-CPAC event. I went to another event run by another organization, allegedly for Republicans and conservatives and all this stuff, who, like Christians, I get along with. I'm not exactly that. I'm more of like, my politics are much more with the founding fathers than Ayn Rand. And you know, the media tries to paint Republicans and conservatives as that, and the reality is a lot different. Some of them are, a lot of them aren't. They just paid lip service to that crap. I'm like 100% Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Ayn Rand, all these people. Some people say that's radical. I think it's dumb. These people founded our country, these men, these founding fathers, and my respect for them is infinite. And I really wish that the media portrayal of those people was accurate, that they're super base, you know, founding fathers people, and they're not. I am, a lot of my friends are, but a lot of mainstream politics is not. It's lukewarm lip service BS, and I hate it. I find it embarrassing and stupid. Anyway, I did find, this was surprising to me, that's why I'm pointing this out. And I think a lot of people will be surprised by this too, but Boomers are much more based, they're much more friendly to ideas and discussions about masculinity and femininity and culture and marriage and family relationships, much more so than I thought. And at Turning Point USA events with Zoomers, it was not like that. A lot of young kids were much more put off by Make Women Virgins again. They were annoyed by it. No one like attacked me or anything, but it was older people, older Gen Xers and Boomers who found it funny. They wanted to ask me about it. They were curious. They were open-minded. They took selfies with me and stuff, the men and the women. And I think one of the main reasons for that is just the internet. The internet changed the world in the late 90s and 2000s. And these Zoomers have known nothing but, you know, social media and advanced, you know, high-speed internet. Boomers and Gen Xers grew up in a world completely different and in America completely different. I had a taste of that in the 90s, but even I still grew up with the internet heavily from like 1998 onwards. But anyway, I thought this was really important. And again, it really shocked me, particularly with the Virgin's hat, which triggers people to a super high degree, above and beyond even all my masculinity hats and make them great again. And this is going to be important as we go through this, so we'll go back to this. So I want to illustrate a tale of two booths. So when you go to these giant conferences, they have like all these booths and stuff, like Expo, you know, media, podcasts. You'll see like Breitbart, you'll see Fox News, you know, Tommy Lauren will be doing interviews. Some of my buddies will be doing interviews, I'll be doing interviews, all this cool stuff, right? What I found at the CPAC events, on the right there, you see this screenshot. I make trailers when I go to these events. It's kind of like a hobby for me, like a vacation almost. Sounds funny, but that's fun for me. On the right's a screenshot of the Students for Life. It's an anti-abortion booth, basically. They talk to young women about, you know, abortion issues. They advocate as best they can through different channels, protesting and stuff, picketing, whatever, and against abortion. And I'm in favor of that, but independent of that, I just wanted to talk to them, ask them questions, talk about the hat and all that. And I found that, not surprisingly, the anti-abortion booths were much more friendly to this hat, Make Women Virgins Again, basically endorsing and supporting the idea of female virginity in America, which I think over the past couple of decades has fallen off a cliff completely. Women today begin having sex in their teenage years, 13, 14, 15 years old, crazy stuff. I lost my virginity at 17, but that was like prom night, senior year, so it was a little more traditional, I guess. But they start really young, and I think for most of American history, this is completely abnormal, completely, totally, 100%. But anyway, I found those organizations, Christian organizations, almost exclusively anti-abortion, right, to be very friendly to these ideas, and they would talk about it with me. They do interviews with me. On the left, I didn't have a screenshot of the exact booth, but basically at Turning Point USA, I found their event. It was a fine event too. I can't criticize the event. It was impressive. Technologically, I mean, I love making events, and what they do is even higher than CPAC. I was impressed. That actually caught me by surprise too. But at the Turning Point USA event, I found a booth for, I forget the exact name, but it was like, you know, it was a booth all about Christian, conservative, college-age women. And they wanted to reach out to college-age conservative Christian women, right? It was very specific. And so I went up and talked to them, and I had this hat on. And I'm like, hey, and I don't do like that hit video stuff. I hate that crap. So I'll film stuff, but I don't do that gotcha stuff, like bazinga in your face, these like fucked up questions. I don't like that. But I'll talk to people and I'll ask pretty intense questions. So I found this booth at the Turning Point USA event. It was young girls. They were all like probably 20 to 23 years old, 3 of them. And I asked them, you guys are a Christian organization, right? It said it right on the banner, but I wanted to like verify. And like, yeah, we're for college Christian women, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, cool, so do Christian women, is it a sin for them? Do they go to hell if they have sex before wedlock, you know, out of wedlock? And they just went, They got so mad so fast when I asked them a basic Christian question. And I'm not a Christian. I'm an atheist, right? I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm an observer. I just want to ask questions and see what people say. And they knew the answer to this question, right? I've never met a hardcore Christian that understands these issues that wouldn't say, yeah, you're not supposed to do that. It's a sin. You can go to hell for that. It's different per denomination, and I don't have a full understanding of all that. But the pastors tell me, like, yeah, 100%. I remember even Michael Foster last year, pastor you just saw speak here, a few minutes ago. He told me they try. Of course, with him, they don't succeed. He's like, yeah, go screw yourself and do what I want. They try to censor him at Christian conferences from talking about sexuality for young people. They say, no, you can't talk about it. He tells them to shove it up their butt, of course, and does what he wants. But that's where Christian organizations in America are at. As a pastor who's supposed to teach people from his holy book, the Bible, about virginity and sexuality and marriage, they want to censor him. Christian organization, are women supposed to do this, or can they go to hell and get in trouble with your God for this? They just go silent. And so we're not answering that. This whole attitude. They went from friendly, like, hey, what's going on? I'm filming YouTube stuff, to just pissed off in a blink of an eye. This was kind of a boomer zoomer thing once again, right? The boomer people find it funny. They take pictures with me. They ask what it's about. Is there a website, right? The zoomer girls who are Christian, this is an explicitly Christian organization. They get mad. And this to me is indicative of where zoomers are at versus the boomers and older Gen Xers and stuff. And it's also indicative too of where American culture is at with regard to female virginity, or even virginity at all, and preserving it and valuing it and respecting it and encouraging it. That's just gone out the window. These zoomer girls don't even know it's alien to them. Like it's like from another, I might as well be speaking Chinese to them. Chinese that makes them really mad for some reason. Now, I went to another conference too, and this one, shockingly, they kicked me out of. They revoked my ticket before I even showed up. This is actually a screenshot of a video we posted from another channel, and it's from the Young Americans for Liberty organization that they claim to be like a Republican conservative thing, but they're not. They're like a libertarian organization. They were founded before they became organized as a nonprofit, as like Youth for Ron Paul. I love Ron Paul, 100%. He was a libertarian candidate for president, 1988. He eventually transitioned back to the Republican Party. But it's a Ron Paul hardcore libertarian organization, more or less, right? They kind of role play as Republican conservative. That's just for like appearances, because nobody votes libertarian. They don't win like anything. So they try to push their ideas, and I don't want to get in the weeds on that, but it is what it is. Anyway, so I went to the two CPAC events where conservative and Republicans are at, and then the Turning Point USA event, which had a lot more Zoomers and young people. It was for college-age people. But this event, they kicked me out. These libertarians who saw Ron Paul, the guy I love and respect, and they supposedly do too. And I mean, they have his head on banners everywhere at this event, every 10 feet. Ron Paul, Ron Paul, Ron Paul, who is I call him the patient zero of cancel culture. The media tried canceling him in 2008 and 2012 when he ran for president as a Republican, kind of like Trump did in 2016 and 2020. He was the beginning of trying to shut someone out and shut him up, because he was a real threat to the political establishment. And these people kicked me out of an event. They revoked my ticket before I even got there, didn't tell me, and it was all this screwed up process when I got there. But eventually they just kicked me out, and they said, your brand doesn't fit with our event. Why? Because my brand is anti-feminism, explicitly, right? It's pretty obvious at this point in 1,000 different ways. You can read unlimited articles about feminists bitching about me on the internet. So that's not inaccurate. But I was stunned that I'd be welcomed, given a media pass at these conservative events. I'd be respected. They wouldn't kick me out. I was just an attendee like anyone else. I followed the rules. I filmed cool videos with, I even interviewed Hercules, Kevin Sorbo, the actor at CPAC, and a Green Beret at another event, running for Congress in, I think, Washington State, Joe Kent. So I'm doing cool stuff. I'm publishing it to a huge channel. And basically, I have an audience of like 350,000 men, young men. These conferences should be reaching out to me, begging me in some sense, right? I don't get too high horse about it, but I have access to a lot of men who don't care about politics too much. Depends on the individual, but they're interested in ideas about masculinity and patriotism and freedom. They should be hunting for people like me. And instead, and now they were friendly, right, at this CPAC and Turning Point events. This event kicked me out. Could not believe it. In the spirit of Ron Paul's, I need to reach out to Ron Paul actually and make him aware of this. He would be furious about this. And this guy is an old man now. He's like 90 years old. He almost died, I think, earlier this year. he had a heart attack or something like that. But the guy's a legend, and this just angered me to no end. But it showed me what losers libertarians have become. These people used to be based, super based, legalized cocaine, all this stuff, automatic weapons, like super hardcore political shit. And now they can't even tolerate someone saying, I don't like feminism, I think it's stupid. They can't tolerate that. They kick you out of events. Because it's run by these libertarian little losers and Zoomers who are not based. They're part of this zombie cult of weirdos. Now, getting back to virginity and how it affects women. This is an article from The Atlantic. They've done hit pieces on the manosphere community that I'm a part of, a leader in. Very pro-feminist website. They've done all kinds of stupid stuff against friends of mine, against different movements that I'm a part of. So I pulled this from them on purpose, because this is actually an article from them illustrating exactly what I'm talking about with female virginity and how it's gone out the window as a value in our country and in our culture and our people. The title is Fewer Sex Partners Means a Happier Marriage. What a shocker, right? And this is like basically a feminist website. This is a little quote I pulled from them. In case you can't read it, I'm just going to read it out loud. I wasn't really designed for you to read necessarily. Over at the Institute Institute for Family Studies, Nicholas Wolfinger, a sociologist, at the University of Utah, has found that Americans who have only ever slept with their spouses are most likely to report being in a very happy marriage. Meanwhile, the lowest odds of marital happiness, about 13 percentage points lower than the one-partner woman, belong to women who have had 6 to 10 sexual partners in their lives. For men, there's still a dip in marital satisfaction after one partner, but it's never as low as it gets for women, as Wolfinger's graph shows. And this is the graph here on the right. They actually pulled from that website, Institute for Family Studies. Basically, when you have too many partners, your ability to pair bond diminishes over time. And for women, the drop-off is much more severe and significant. One of the ways my old friend Stefan Molyneux, one of our speakers for men, you might know him from YouTube, he got banned like a year ago. He had like 1 million subscribers, philosopher Stefan Molyneux. He described pair bonding like Velcro. And if you overuse Velcro, like when you're a kid with your sneakers or something, it eventually loses its stickiness, right? It doesn't work anymore after a while. Put it through the wash too many times, it gets too used up, it goes away. This is true for men too, and people don't understand this about me in our events, but I firmly believe that and I wouldn't deny that. The issue is for women, it's an exponential fall off a cliff. It happens real fast and the damage is real intense and it doesn't go away nearly as easily, if at all. Even Michael Foster is a pastor, right? You saw him speak here. He's told me to my face, he believes men and women both, if they have sex out of wedlock, they can go to hell. But he'll agree with me. For both, that's true, he says, in his worldview, right? But for women, he says it's a lot more intense, the damage. And he sees this in his life as a pastor at his churches and talking to families and men and women and marriages and couples. And this graph, I think, demonstrates that. So basically, men are the yellow line and women are the blue line. Other speakers, too, in our past have discussed this, like against Stefan Molyneux, a lot of other speakers as well. I have a quote here on the left that I think lines up with this perfectly. And this is a quote from my favorite philosopher, a woman, actually. Jesse Lee busted my ass on this, one of her speakers not too long ago. It was pretty funny. He wonders why I follow the advice or the leadership and the ideas of a woman, and that's because truth is truth. Wherever an idea comes from doesn't necessarily dictate its truth. Truth is true, reality is reality. Existence exists. But the quote is, you can evade reality, but you cannot evade the consequences of evading reality. Again, you can evade reality, but you cannot evade the consequences of evading reality. This is a quote that young women in America, especially in their 20s, but even in their late teens, they need to embed and ingrain in their face and in their head. They really need to get this through their skull because they don't want to hear it, right? They think they can act like men. Basically, I view men as seed sprayers, right? So men are designed to, in an evolutionary sense, they can have sex with a lot of partners. If I knock up 10 women in a month, the risk to my life in terms of getting eaten by an animal is 0. If you get pregnant from a guy you have sex, an animal can eat you. You become increasingly defenseless over the next 9 months. You can't even run it at one point, right? After a certain point, you have a baby in you. You're defenseless. You are completely dependent on the people around you, hopefully the guy that you had sex with, but even the rest of your community. You can't defend yourself, you can't feed yourself and support yourself, or it's super, super hard. For men, it's the opposite. What are the consequences, right? Genghis Khan, notoriously in history, he had over 1,000 children or something, right? Like a huge percentage of Asian people have genetic links, they're descendants basically of Genghis Khan. Because the risks to men are almost 0, and for women, it's huge. So young women need to hear this. You can evade reality, but you cannot evade the consequences of evading reality. And they think that they can act like men, they can act like seed sprayers, so to speak, with impunity. And reality is, feminism doesn't get along with reality, let's put it that way. And if you deny your own nature, Socrates, for example, the guy who introduced me, a really close friend of mine, he says that nature will win. And young women today think they can get away with denying nature and with no consequences. And the real life does not work that way. If I act like a woman, my life's gonna suck. Women won't like me, I'll have bad social skills. I'll feel like crap because I'm a man. So I wanna live in alignment to my nature as a man. I wanna be masculine, that's good for me. I wanna be a good animal based on the way I was born, designed by nature or God or whatever. It doesn't really specifically matter to me in that sense. It's I wanna live in alignment to who I am and my DNA. Women need to do this too, and that means being feminine, pursuing femininity as much as you can over a lifetime. And if you act like a man, there's gonna be consequences. And when they deny them, well, we'll get into it. We'll get back to that in a second. I did want to point out, like I said, that feminism is failure. This is a little clip we cut from Coach Greg's speech last year at 22 Convention. It's about a 5-minute clip, not too long. It's on YouTube, check it out. And in this clip, he overviews the massive failure of feminism. All the statistics that you are proven with it, they're associated with it, that are terrible, 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 terrible. For example, 72% of inmates in state prisons are raised by single mothers. I think single motherhood is a direct product of feminism. It's astronomically skyrocketed since feminism became a thing in the United States, particularly for black families, but really all families, except Asians for some reason, seem like immune to feminism. But one issue I want to mention, like I briefly hinted at, that he did not hit on, and I think no one wants to talk about, is I think the rise of feminism as a cultural dominant force in the United States has led to a lot of birth defects, a raise in birth defects in children. No one wants to talk about this, but feminism has basically pushed the age of motherhood further and further and further down the timeline as they continue to prioritize schooling and career first before motherhood. They put motherhood last, basically. And I think a direct result is kids come out. They're being born, when a mother is 36, 38, 40 years old. That means your children are at a higher risk of birth defects. It doesn't matter what your beliefs can be whatever you want. Reality is reality, and your beliefs don't dictate it. Your opinions don't dictate reality. Another quote that I should share with you from a philosopher named Francis Bacon, Ayn Rand was fond of this comment too, is that nature to be commanded is to be obeyed. Nature to be commanded is to be obeyed. When you disobey it, like the Ayn Rand quote, there's consequences. And some of those consequences are not just for you, it's for your children, it's for the babies. And I've never seen, for some reason, anyone talk about this on the internet, that feminism in some way, shape, or form leads to birth defects in children. Permanent stuff, right? Down syndrome, autism, all kinds of really horrible stuff. For what? So women can have a career at 25 instead of 35? Like, this makes no sense. It's crazy. Anyway, you should go check that out. This is great. So this is Lori Alexander. I interviewed her earlier this year for a little over 2 hours on my YouTube channel. I did want her at the event, but she's battling a pretty serious form of cancer right now, so she couldn't make it. Hopefully she gets healed from that, comes here next year. She loves what we're doing, and I'm really happy to have her at the event in the future. This is a super fun interview, though. You should check it out. It's on 21 Studios, about 2 hours. Lori Alexander. You can just type the internet's most base grandma. I think we'll pull it up. I think she is, right? But I bring this up because one of the most common rebuttals when I talk about female virginity, with this hat, in public, at events, conferences, right, whatever, people say, well, what about men? We're talking like within 5 seconds, right? If they're not like totally triggered, like screaming at me, like, we're not answering that, right? They go, well, what about men? We're like, literally 10 seconds into a conversation. And what do they want to do? They want to deflect the conversation to men immediately. Now, we could talk about that, but that's not what the subject is, right? This is basically a manipulation tactic. It's a logical fallacy. I want to talk about a specific issue, right? That's completely legitimate. I'm not saying that's, male virginity is not a thing we can talk about. Christians certainly would, right? Michael Foster, other pastors, stuff like that. That's fine. It's that women want to, feminists in particular, and women who are indoctrinated by feminism in ways they may not even realize, they want to punt the issue away from women and deflect it and hide it. No, we're going to talk about female virginity like we have been here, right? And this needs to be normal in the culture again. Why can't we talk about this? Why do people get so mad, right? I don't go up to people insulting them about these issues. I ask them questions. They can't handle it. Because our culture's become this, pussified beta male, kind of culture. Snowflakes, basically, George Carlin stuff. Anyway, I bring this up because Lori, she was a virgin when she got married to her husband. I think his name's Ken. I haven't talked to him yet, but I talked to her a lot through email, obviously on video. She was a virgin when they got married a long time ago, and he was a virgin as well. So I asked her, if your husband, and she's hardcore Christian. I mean, this woman is like a female Michael Foster. She loves Michael Foster. It's like her favorite, right? I'm like, all right, if your husband was not a virgin when you guys met and when you got married, you still have married him, you can watch him video. She goes, absolutely. Boom, immediately, zero hesitation, which is indicative that men and women are different. It doesn't mean, and so I asked her this question too because that lines up with her beliefs. She's a hardcore Christian. Virginity before marriage is important to her. I'm an atheist, right? I don't think I'm going to hell for having sex out of wedlock. It isn't that specific consequence, burning for all eternity. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm interested in the consequences here in real life on this planet, here on this earth, in my one life. But she flat out said, no, I would have still married him, 100%, right? No problems with that. Even though she thinks that's a sin, this is like a really serious thing for her. And she takes her religion very seriously, which I respect. I respect that a lot. So a basic foundational idea for the manosphere, like a 21 convention, for example, that's kind of the center of the manosphere community, is that men and women are different. And this to me illustrates that. And it's another reason why punting the issue away from women is false and it's dumb. Like we can talk about men, but it's a different situation, it's a different context. When we talk about female virginity, this is important. It's extra important. It's more important. And that's, I think, her answer to that question kind of highlights that too, right? She believes it's a sin, but she still, would have married him, no problem, if he wasn't a virgin. My basic premise is that thought culture, so hooking up like crazy, which I firmly believe, and I don't think this is even controversial, but girls having sex really young, getting into Tinder and going to college and getting drunk and going to parties and just like screwing a bunch of guys, which is really, really, really common today. Even when I was in college in the late 2000s, this was super common, right? This has gotten worse and worse and worse over time. But thought culture, losing virginity too young, not caring about it, not valuing it, disregarding it, disrespecting nature, this leads to the cat kingdom. It's a fast lane to the cat kingdom. I call it the cat. I love cats, by the way. People think I hate cats because I do this stuff. I love cats. I feed half a dozen cats in my neighborhood. I'm a cat daddy. I have evidence of this, man. I can tame like stray cats, all kinds of stuff. But this thought culture that's super normal today, right? This is an extreme version of it, Cardi B with their WAP stuff. But this has become normalized. This is feminism to me, right? They don't say, I'm a feminism, WAP, or I'm feminist, right? WAP. It's not that explicit, but this is feminism. This is the end result of 100 years of feminism, unchecked, unchallenged. You're not allowed to talk about it. You're not allowed to challenge it, right? At all, anywhere. It's supposed to be like this completely normal thing that you can't even challenge and criticize, which is ridiculous. 100% ridiculous.
Most men are weak and beta. How do you get past this? How do you be a real man? How do you be a husband and a father?
That has been where we've dropped the ball as men, is because we're too acceptant. We're too tolerant. I'm calling for intolerance for evil.
We need to be able to properly identify with the definition, what is masculinity?
We need men to stand up and do heroic things.
Building a tribe of people who are of like mind, who you can depend on, who hold you accountable, who will call you on your BS.
I call the official tagline for now with 21 Convention is America's last stand for masculinity. I think it is. The event, and it's as a reflection of the manosphere, really.
You come out and you consciously attend and start talking with these people, because people who are coming here to discuss big ideas, important ideas.
Not just talking about being masculine, but okay, you've done all this self-development, what are you going to do with it?
But if you want to become this old cat lady, the wine aunt, right? Drinking wine, you got no kids, you got a bunch of cats, but you're eating cat food, this is where this leads. And it all stems from female virginity not being valued at all. Like you can just be a man and like there's no consequences. No. It's women like this, it's sad, right? We can make fun of them and mock them with memes and stuff. It's really sad. There's no Sean Smith said it, the Dr. Sean Smith speaking to our men over there. His buddy Ken was speaking to you on Sunday, that there's no do-overs, right? Your virginity peaks at 22, that's it. It doesn't re-peak at 32 or 42. You don't get to wish it to come back, by throwing a penny in a pond or something. It's gone. 90% of your eggs are dead, gone forever when you hit 30. You hit advanced maternity age at 35 forever. And it'd be one thing if girls like knew this and they were educated and they still did it, They're just doing it. They really don't even know. They have no idea. Girls hear this stuff and they're like, what? It's bad, it's toxic, it's terrible. And it's sad. As much as I might, combat these people on the internet, make fun of them, make them really mad, and like kind of ruin their day, it's sad. I don't like seeing it. These are my countrywomen, right? These are my fellow Americans, females. I don't want to see them do bad. I want to see them do good. And this is not good. Whether it's this, they try to, elevate this as some God status. It's stupid. It's all stupid, and it's all sad, and it's all terrible. It's misery, compensating itself through these other, it's kind of like an opposite projection, right? These women are both miserable. They just pretend that they're not. They compensate in other ways, getting drunk on wine, dollar store wine, I call it, cheap box wine, crap like that. I think women even get, a lot of speakers have talked about this, like Stefan Molyneux. Women basically, they want babies, right? The urge to breed for men and women is huge. That's another reason Socrates says nature will win, right? But basically, they don't have kids and they replace them with cat babies. So it's the right idea, but the wrong species. It is what it is. Here's a picture from last year. We're going to transition a little bit to more personal here. So for my speech last year, I tell women that they should, when they're young, most women, not all, right? We live in a free country and we should. And if you want to make bad choices and ruin your life, okay. I just want the consequences to be on you, to be self-responsible. But young women, I think, should get wifed up, knocked up to live happy. These are my nephews. I don't have kids. On the left, my left here, we got Tyson. On the right, we got Bryson. They're about 1 year apart, little Irish twins, right? Now I got more. Now we got unlimited babies. I got another nephew too, right? Dylan in the middle, the new one, from my older sister, Maria. So those are on the left. Those are left and right are brothers. In the middle is Dylan, so all cousins now. Which is super cool. I had cousins too growing up. I still do. They live pretty far though up in New Jersey. But I love seeing them. I love having them. And holding them really, I guess you could say, as a figure of speech, not literally because I'm not Christian, but holding my nephews, especially the first one, Bryson, on the right, but all of them ultimately, Tyson, Dylan, and Bryson, that put the fear of God in me. It really made me realize what my lifestyle of banging a lot of chicks over the years and all the stuff I was doing as a pickup artist and stuff like that, where this really goes, where this leads, or where it can lead. And some of my friends, like Socrates, for example, once again, he has a 5-year-old daughter. I was eating Thanksgiving with them when she was in the womb, like 8 months and something days. I'm about ready to pop out, and then a few weeks later, she popped out. Now she's 5, running around, right? I'm not Uncle Anthony per se, but I'm around a lot, right? Socrates is a very close friend of mine. But that's different, right? She's not my blood. As much as I love Soc and Socrates and I appreciate his family and respect them and want to help them as much as I can, she's not my blood relative. These ones are. These are my sister's kids. They mean a lot to me. They're not my sons, but they'll be the cousins of my son someday. They're important to me. I want to help them and nurture them and protect them, like my aunts and uncles did for me and still do to this day. So we're going to talk about, leading by example and recommendations. Because there's one thing to say, women should be virgins again, make women virgins. Virginity should be valued in America. It should be respected. It should be honored. It should be considered the foundation even of femininity. At least chastity as well, and chastity and virginity. These are like the cornerstone, the starting point of femininity, right? This should be encouraged culturally. But I also want to lead by example. And what can I do? So just brass tacks, I think that's how you say it. Brass tacks, I've banged over 130 women in my life. And I've turned down probably even more than that. Since I was 17 over the past 15 years. And there are guys with way higher notch counts than that. There's a guy speaking there right now with a notch count, right now literally across the hall. John Anthony, he's had sex with 1,400 women, which is mind-boggling. Yeah, it's pretty wild. I think now that's not my lifestyle, that's unreal. But I still think there's a lot for men to learn from him. I don't think they should emulate that, but with that much life experience, that's like the Olympic gold medal of going out and being promiscuous, right? That's wild. I don't think I should do that, but they still can learn from that. My life has been sort of similar to that, but nowhere near at that crazy high level. But what I realized basically, especially my nephews, is that life was leading to disaster. And you would even say, especially my nephews being born, I was getting a gut feeling as I was approaching 150. I was I don't feel good about this. I'm not a woman, but I don't think I'm invincible to losing my ability to pair bond, to connect, to build a relationship. At some point, 1,400, he's way past the point of being able to build a family. Now his values too are in alignment with that. He doesn't want to build a family. That's crazy to me. but that's his life, that's what he's gonna do with it, right? But I don't wanna be that guy. I don't wanna have sex with 500 women or 1,000. Sounds kinda like fun, but not really, because your children and family are a lot more important to me. My values are in alignment in this direction, and I think by far most people, men and women, line up this way. They'll be the oddballs, right? They say prostitution is the oldest profession in the world. I don't really doubt it. There's always been these like hyper alpha males that will just slay women their whole life. But that's not me, and most guys are not even, they're never gonna get anywhere near that. For example, in America, the average lifetime partner count for men is like 7, and for women it's like 10 or something. I don't know if I trust the women one, to be honest. I think women are a lot more bad. Men tend to like pump their numbers up, women tend to downplay them. This kind of is what it is. I think he's telling the truth though, that guy over there, pretty wild dude. Anyway, what I decided, and let me get a little more backstory on this too. So I'm 33 now, and I lost my virginity at 17. I was in a 4.5 year relationship where I was monogamous, didn't cheat, nothing like that. I think that's like really stupid, abusive, and retarded. I think it's like, for men and women both, you should not do that. Never mind if you're Christian or whatever, right? It's even more terrible. But what I realized is that the older I got, is the more wild and dangerous my behavior was getting. The pinnacle of this is when I bought a 3-pack of Plan B off Amazon Prime, because it was cheaper than getting it like a Walgreens. And I was like, this is like, and I never got any STDs, thank God, but I realized this was like out of control. This was gonna end in disaster. I was gonna end up, let me say this too. What I realized by holding my nephews, these little babies, is that if I pick the wrong woman, if I make the wrong woman the mother of my children, I'm gonna get stuck with her, because I know guys at the fatherhood event who've been through divorce court, who've been through hell. We have a guy here right now, Jeff Younger, going through that. The mother of his children is trying to castrate his son. I'm not kidding, look it up. Jeff Younger, CNN, Fox News, all over the place. It's terrible. These men that I know, I even know their kids sometimes, right? I get to know these people, they live in Orlando. That kid, he's stuck with that woman for 18 years. That kid is stuck with that mother for life. She might be crazy or not. Maybe she's just like kind of a bad woman who's not virtuous or whatever, right? There's all kinds of, life's complicated. The point is, if I pick the wrong woman to be the mother of my kids, that kid, girl or boy, is stuck with that woman forever, including after I'm dead. That's fucked up. That's when I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is not in alignment with my moral values. I'm done. I'm sick of this. It's not fun anymore. It's getting like, I don't know if it's inhumane. It lost all of its excitement and fun. And I think that was part of the danger element. I kept getting into like riskier and riskier sexual behavior. But also I think it was my brain, like my hindbrain, right, lizard brain, pushing me to breed. And I was like, this is gonna get me. Like, however smart I think I am, that little lizard brain is gonna get me. And I ain't gonna beat him. I'm pretty good, right? I made it this far without knocking a woman up. But I'm not perfect, I'm not invincible. I know that for a fact. I've learned that the hard way in my face, in real life. I married a hooker back in like 2014, for example, on accident, on purpose. It's on YouTube, you can check it out, Ring Medusa. Anyway, I stopped having sex out of wedlock back in April. It's like, I'm done, 100% done. And after behaving this way for so long, just doing kind of whatever I want, with the exception of that relationship where I didn't cheat or anything, yeah, I've just kind of done whatever I want, and I'm like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore, 100%. I don't need, a lot of people immediately like, oh, are you Christian or whatever? I'm like, no, this is not a God thing, it's not a religious thing, nothing like that. I can't hold these babies and then engage in this behavior and reconcile the two. I'm like, this is sick, this is done. It doesn't mean it's not fun, although I did lose a lot of fun over time. It just became very repetitive and just no emotions, and just was fucked up. But anyway, that's how I lead by example. And I don't think women should do that. So women will watch this, maybe they get some feminist is bitching at me or something. Curtis Connor, he was screaming at me to like 4 million like little Zoomer chicks, on YouTube, stuff like that. They're gonna watch this and like downvote it and hate it, whatever, right? I don't think though they should do this. This is my decision. I'm leading my life the way I want to do it. I think young women in America, if they watch this, the few that watch it and actually care and are interested in making their life better, they should do something different. So feminism, I think, has encouraged women to lead relationships, including sexually and stuff, and this is bad. Men have to lead their families, marriages, relationships, all of it. If women lead, women are not happy. If men lead, men are happy and women are happy. That's how that works. You can be mad about it, whatever. I didn't make the rules, this is how it is. But if you say you're not gonna have sex anymore with like the boyfriend or ever again out of wedlock or anything like that, this is you trying to lead in a way that's not gonna work. You might think it's gonna work, it's not gonna work. It's gonna blow up in your face. I think what women should do is commit, and I got this idea from a friend actually years ago in another situation. I was just kind of observing something else going on. He basically said women need to commit to the idea of marrying the next man they have sex with. If they're in a position where they want to get married, they realize they've done a lot of wrong, whether that's they banged too many guys, 10 or 50, at that point they're probably just broken, but they basically need to commit to marrying the next man they have sex with. Not maybe, not probably, not 80%, not I'll try my best, 100,000% committed, period, done. That's it. So that's different than what I've done, right? I've completely shut off that part of my life, no. But women should do something different, and I think that's pretty reasonable. And, well, a guy's gonna hear that and be like, what the fuck? But I think what women need to do, especially young women, right? They don't know a lot about dating at all. That's why they get burnt out on Tinder, banged out by all these alpha males, and the whole life's ruined, right? They end up cat ladies. The WAP stuff. Boom. But I think, let me go back to this actually. Hang on a second. I think what young women need to do, throat's killing me, is they need to look at a man's family. They need to stop focusing too much on themselves and even on him. They need to look at his surrounding environment and the context. That means his family. How many brothers and sisters does he have? Are his parents married, right? How many cousins does he have? What are those relationships like? They need to look well beyond the man before even considering his own intentions, right? Unless he just says flat out, I don't want to do this, it's never going to happen. He's a player kind of guy like that, or a fuckboy as we call it in today's culture. But they need to stop looking so much at the individual. They need to look at the whole picture, right? Religious beliefs, family, divorce, is there divorce in the family, all kinds of stuff. If they do that and they commit 1,000% to marrying that guy beforehand, whether or not they disclose that is up to them. That's a shot call you got to make on your own. Probably you should disclose it, but again, you got to make that decision yourself. But young girls should look at the whole picture, beyond the man himself. So in summary, I believe firmly that chastity and virginity are foundational to femininity. I think this has been a normal idea for probably not only hundreds of years in America, but thousands of years in our civilization. Thought culture is masculine behavior, and it's self-destructive. You might think it's fun. I'm sure it is fun for a little while, and then it blows up in your face and ruins your life forever. That's not fun, and you can't undo it. There are no do-overs. This is not a video game. You don't get to hit the reset button and play Mario over again. You're fucked. You're done. You screwed up, and you can't undo it. Not good. So sex is fun, but it can be dangerous, particularly for women. Ask any single mother who got, left, all that. Her whole life's ruined. She has to depend on the government the rest of her life, big daddy government. That's a whole train wreck on itself. And we need to revalue female virginity in America ASAP. I really think that, political conservatism, like we were overlooking earlier, one of the reasons I'm not a political conservative so much, and I identify much more explicitly with being a patriot and the founding fathers than I ran, is it's a failure. These ideas make them angry, to the point that they don't even want to talk about them. You don't agree, okay, let's talk about it, maybe debate, right? I'll debate anybody on this stuff. They don't want to talk about it. They get obsessed with policy stuff, right? The wall and this and that, blah, blah, blah. They never look at the deeper, bigger picture, the roots of what's happening. And it's stuff like masculinity, femininity, divorce rates, virginity, particularly for women, right? This is super taboo, and it should not be. These are the main things they should be talking about. This is what makes real change. And then it's even beyond conservatives though, right? Look at Christians today in America. They can't even, Michael Foster's a pastor, certified pastor, schooling, all this stuff, right? He goes to big Christian conferences. They try to tell him, no, you can't talk about that. They're deplatforming themselves, right? I get kicked out of libertarian events just for saying feminism's stupid. Never mind this stuff. I didn't even wear this hat, right? I wish I would have, given what happened, that they kicked me out and all that for stupid bullshit. But yeah, whether the libertarians or political conservatives, these people are lost. They need, and I think there's hope with the boomers in particular, but yeah, that's one of the reasons I don't identify. They don't get it. They really, truly, fundamentally don't get why culture is the way it is, why politics has gone off the rails, is super polarized, blah, 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 blah. They'll blame the Democrats, liberals. No, they don't get it. It's sex. There's nothing more foundational in our species than masculinity and femininity, than men being men and women being women. These forces in our culture and in our species are hundreds of thousands of years old. They're older than the wheel, they're older than fire, they're older than language, way older than civilization, any religion, God, all this stuff. There's nothing more foundational. If you're anything more foundational male and female is either you're talking about being a human being, or you're talking about another primate. You leave the species. You've lost the context at that point. These forces are beyond foundational and fundamental to who we are as human beings and to how our whole world operates. Not just America, not just the West, everywhere. And we're all human beings, and we all have to respect our nature if we want to live well with each other and even as individuals in our own lives, from micro to macro. So that's my speech, Make Women Virgins Again. I appreciate your time. I appreciate being here at the event, and I hope you enjoyed my talk. If you want, I can take some questions.
I do have a question.
Sure. There's a microphone, audio. Can we get our mic? Uno moment. Oh yeah, cool. Thank you. He's going to unmute it for you. Hang on a second. You can just ask it, and I'll repeat it.
Please, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Are Zoomers being born now, are they the babies of millennials? I am a Boomer.
Yeah.
A Zoomer are the babies that you showed.
I think the Zoomers are the children of Gen Xers. I'm not like a generational, sociologist expert on that, but I think the kids born now are the next one after Zoomers. I think that's pretty recent too. Yeah, it keeps going. I'm a millennial. Millennials, man, I don't even know where to start with millennials.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
don't even go there.
Yeah, I'm in the middle too, right? I'm not even an old one or a young one, so.
Yeah. Okay, and then I do, second, is thought, T-H-O-T,
Mhm.
an acronym?
Yeah.
For, and what is the an acronym for?
In my understanding, it stands for that hoe over there. It's basically how Zoomers today, I think Zoomers made this up.
Slang.
Yeah, it's slang.
That hoe.
Over there. She's gonna get an A+ on the quiz after the end of the event. Now I think it basically just means hoe. It's like a new way to say hoe, but they can hashtag it, and it's not a curse word then. Oh, hoe, H-O-E. That hoe over there, like a garden tool.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you meant W-H-O-R-E.
And so for the camera, she was asking what thought means, and I had to explain to her what the acronym means.
Yeah, well, thank you.
I don't know these things either half the time. There's so many new acronyms like this that people make up.
Well, that,
and what.
therefore my question.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
I think she has one there.
Hi.
Hey.
Roya. Thank you. I guess I have an overarching question and some comments. So I work with women. I've been working with them for over 20 years in coaching. And I had to do some healing myself. And it started in 2015. I was a very driven woman, still am.
Okay.
And was married for 22 years, in a relationship for 25 years.
Wow.
And wanted to figure out how I contributed. So I think whenever you have a problem, you point your finger to self first.
Yeah.
And so I've been to deep diving since 2015 on relationships in general. And in coaching women, there's a general pain. They don't feel the joy of the things that they've achieved. They're in relationships where they don't feel passionate, held, seen, and heard, and the men too, and that they feel guilty as mothers. Now, when we're talking about the subject of sex, I do see that men are the key and women are a lock. And essentially, you have to decide not every key gets to fit in your lock, right?
Yeah.
Because you are going to carry more of that. And in putting a man inside of you, it's like you take his energy on. So you have to be very careful about what energy is deposited in the body.
Yeah.
Now, I think, though, extreme in anything is extreme. So in working with women, and I work with a lot of women in Utah, actually, where Mormon culture is big. And so I'd like to go to that slide, if you don't mind.
Oh, the Utah people.
Because that's
Yeah.
where the study was done, was in Utah, where there's a high rate of Mormons.
We got a
where
Mormon in the back, too,
virgin,
right
where being a virgin is huge.
Yes.
And the challenge that I found is that when women are extremely promiscuous, it's a lack of self-love. And what happens when they're extremely virginal, they begin to have a lack of self-love.
I have a comment on this, if I can pause you here.
Yeah.
So I think let me say this. I think women saving sex till marriage is super cool. It can be very dangerous. You can blow up in your face. I mean, you basically are trying to get the first guy to be the right guy for a long, long time.
There you go.
And that's not easy.
Yeah.
I think young women should count much more so on family. Actually, not even their immediate family if they can trust them, brothers and sisters. I have a lot myself. But even beyond that, I think aunts, uncles, and cousins are some of the best judges you can have around you, if you're fortunate enough to have that.
Agreed. Yeah. In fact,
because they're less biased than your family.
In fact, in foreign culture, like I'm half a foreign culture, it's very much you look at the whole family.
Yeah.
And the family has to approve of your partner more or less for it to feel right, because they become a part of your whole immersion.
Because who can have foresight of 50 years when you're 19? Like, this is really hard to get that right.
Yeah.
Male
And
or
if you're
female.
partnering with a man that's under 25 when his mind isn't developed yet, his physical brain isn't developed yet.
true.
And by the way, if you're on the pill, it changes your chemistry, so the smell changes.
That's right.
And then you don't even know who your right partner is when you're on the pill, because once you get off, the pheromones would be different. But anyway, so women get to, the thing that's challenging to me is that, so I'm glad you said that they should have some partners before, because if they don't get to love themselves and get to know themselves and get to know that there are differences in that intimacy, there's a lot of misery. They feel imprisoned almost in their sex and sexuality in their marriage, because a part of them starts to die. And the only difference between friendship and marriage is the intimacy piece. So what I'm noticing is that, sorry, I made a note and I don't know what it is. Let me get to, okay, so if you notice that in the curve, there is a point where she bottoms out at 6 to 10, right?
Yeah.
So in Utah, there's a lot of shame, of course, if you do have sex outside of marriage. So I can imagine that if the study was done there, these women in particular have a societal conditioning since childhood that they should be ashamed of themselves to be a promiscuous young girl.
I completely support that, by the way. Like, shame is not shame is like anger. It can be bad or it can be useful.
Shame is the lowest vibration in emotional energy,
Completely
which
disagree.
doesn't allow a person to rebuild when they carry shame.
I mean shame like in a cultural sense, like, if you do this, I'm gonna look down on you because it's dangerous. And you could screw up your life super easy. So
It can, but there's a challenge there, because there's judgment and individuality and personal journeys that have to do with
let me
that.
give you an example here. I think men should be shamed too for abandoning, their families, and if they do that, 100%. And that needs to be said. They should be shamed for that. Not just it's a difference of opinion and like their lifestyle. No, you abandon your family, you're a piece of shit.
If you're hurting someone, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at with that position.
Yeah, there's a line.
Yeah.
But then you see how it spikes back up again. And so my observation and my hypothesis, my illusion is that they regain their self-confidence in their own self-esteem and their own being a sexual human. And I'm not saying you should have that many partners. I'm just saying what that indicates to me is a reclamation of themselves at some degree.
Could be.
To understand that they can go.
Interesting and useful. It's not. It's a map. It's not the territory.
Right.
So if you did this study like outside of Utah, you might get different numbers. It could be worse. It could be better. Utah, of course, is a bastion of traditional values in America. I just went there recently for my first time. I really enjoyed it. I was like, this is super cool. The rest of America is not like that right now. So, other parts of the world are even more traditional and stuff like that. But anyway, the map is not the territory. So like, this is really cool to look at. I'm not saying that's absolute truth what's on this graph. It's just what they found. I don't even know the numbers and the quantity of people and things like that they had in it.
Yeah, but that's going to go toward the point is that it's in a state that.
Yeah, sure, and I don't deny that, and it could be biased in that in that sense.
Yeah.
But I also think that valuing female virginity has been a common sense female value for a long time. It's been a common sense cultural value. Like I say I'm for toxic masculinity. That's just to piss people off. I'm for common sense masculinity and common sense femininity. things that were known for thousands of years, like our species has 2 genders. There's not 500. The gorillas have 2, monkeys have 2, baboons have 2, we have 2, not 500. We're not special. And the same is true with respecting things like female virginity. Like, we didn't need studies 1,000 years ago to say that, like, letting 19-year-old women bang 10 dudes off, there's no Tinder then, but if there was, is dangerous. You could ruin your life, you could get knocked up on the first guy. Even if they don't get knocked up or an STD that ruins your life forever, like a permanent one. One guy, you know, in the manosphere we say that the number of women is not really important, it's what happened, or the number of partners a woman has is not super important. It's an easy target to attack and stuff, like, oh, she banged 40 dudes, she's a whore. It's not like that. A woman can get really her heart broken by one guy.
Yeah.
Maybe she only has 3 partners, super low, but one dude bangs her heart up and she's ruined for life. She'll be haunted by that guy 20 years later, still talking about him. I know friends who've, you know, dated girls that are older, 40s and 50s. I'll talk about an ex-boyfriend, he'll be like, a buddy of mine, you guys have seen her. He's like, when was that relationship? 20 years ago? Like, and that can happen to men too, but I think it happens to women a lot more easily. And that's part of how men and women are different. It's dangerous. Men are seed sprayers, it's not as risky for us to do this. Women, it's very dangerous, physically and psychologically.
It can, absolutely, yeah. And I think women, though, need to have permission to take their journeys and not feel shamed for it. For example, I had that exact thing happen, my boyfriend right before my husband.
Okay.
And he wasn't mean, he just never said he loved me unless we had sex. And then I left. And we were going to get married and all of that. And it affected my entire marriage. But what happened, though, for me, that I caution, and women just kind of, so Noah was the next one, my husband, he got the wounded side of me. I didn't get time to heal from that and have other experiences before locking into one that didn't give me time for growth and exploration to rediscover that wasn't something to guard anymore. I was guarded.
If I can comment on guarding and trauma, I think it's kind of where you're getting at these issues. I think part of femininity itself, valuing femininity and virginity included or not in context, I think part of femininity is preserving femininity. We say in the manosphere, for example, our view of men and women is that masculinity is built. Like young men, like getting laid when you're 30 as a man is way easier than at 20. At 20, you're a young kid, you know, you're just out of your teens, you don't have any money, you don't really know anything about the world, you're not very masculine yet, right? Your brain's not developed yet, you're not super logical or rigid, you're not like a badass yet, you haven't been challenged by the world and overcome it. With women, it's the opposite. Femininity is mostly not built, it's preserved. That's part of where virginity fits in and valuing it. And I don't think we need to live in some, you know, Handmaid's Tale, like hyper-Nazi culture. That's just stupid and weird. That's a farce that they make up on TV. But I really think that women, their femininity is preserved, and virginity for women is part of that, explicitly, physically, like you said, lock and key stuff. I think, you know,
I think the word virginity is what throws me off. I don't think virginity is a preservation of femininity. I think sexual
chastity instead.
I think sexual awareness and self-awareness and making conscious decisions, rather than, but that comes from grounding too. You have to understand and own yourself. How do you feel about self-responsibility
for women?
What does that mean?
Like you said, lock
in
and
what
key.
context?
So, for example, you know, women hit high notch counts. I've had speakers at our men's conventions. They call men like me slut makers, and I'm like, no. I've had debates with some pastors even over this. I'm like, if a woman has had sex with like 35 guys, and I'm number 36, for example, this has happened, I'm sure, at some point, I'm not responsible for you being, if that girl is considered a slut, let's assume that, I'm not responsible for that. I didn't make you bang 35 guys. Neither did the guy number 35, 30, 25, 20, 10, 15. Some of these guys might have been just like legit assholes along the way, but in total, she's the common denominator. And some people don't want to hold women responsible. I think even traditionalists sometimes, they don't want to hold women responsible for anything. They're scared of women, in public or otherwise. No, you're responsible for what you do as an adult. And assuming you didn't get raped, which I'm saying that didn't happen in this example of 35.
Well, there's varying degrees of being sexually wounded. It doesn't have to have rape involved. And there's varying degrees of
But in terms of partner
self-esteem
count,
issues.
in the absence of rape, a woman is 100% responsible for her partner count, not the men, not any one of them, not even together.
Oh,
She
well,
did
yeah,
it.
unless she was, there's a lot of factors in that. I don't disagree with that. What I'm saying is that we're talking about extremes, right? So there's extreme in promiscuity, and there's extreme in virginity that can both be equally harmful to the psyche.
Potentially. I mean, female virginity, you know, blowing up in your face because you try to marry the first guy you bang, that's an example. It's not perfect. There's risk.
Or even to waiting for the next guy I'm going to have sex with is the guy.
If you wait to 30, yeah, it could be too late. There's context. Like if a woman's like 35 and you haven't ever been married, man, your chances of getting married are like 13% at that point. So there's a lot of nuance to this. And what I want to say is Ayn Rand, my favorite philosopher, was fond of saying that there are no guarantees in life. You probably heard that elsewhere too, right? There's nowhere that's risk-free. No matter what advice, no matter what ideas you come up with or someone advises you, even if they're really good, nothing's risk-free, right? No matter what you do, no matter how well you plan, no matter how good you have family and friends and culture and whatever, it's not risk-free. It can always blow up in your face. As a man, as a woman, anything like that. So yeah, it can blow up in your face. It could be dangerous. But I still think that female virginity should be protected and valued and respected and encouraged. Not forced, encouraged, 100%. In public, churches, speeches like this, whatever. Our culture's lost that completely at this point. You're not even, this is probably the first time any man's got up in public in the past 30 years in a secular stage and said, female virginity is a good thing, we should talk about it, debate it, all that. This is like not allowed. I would never get invited to a TED conference to talk about these issues, ever. Yeah. Right or wrong, they wouldn't care. It's not allowed, and that's wrong. Does that answer your question? We've been talking kind of back and forth.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
Does anyone else have a question? I got to wrap up in a minute. All right. I'm going to wrap up. All right, it's been a little bit over an hour. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. I'm Anthony Dream Johnson. Talk to you soon. Peace out. Thank you. We can win this war.
We can win this war.
Okay, well, joining us from Orlando, Florida, is the man in that clip, Anthony Dream Johnson, who says he wants to abolish feminism and make women great again.
No, but it also says, with a trademark, make women great again. For women, always great.
Make women great again.
But they're going to do a 3-day seminar for women led by all men.
In mansplaining news, a 3-day conference for women led by men hopes to make women great again.
How the 22 convention will make you the greatest you ever. Raise your femininity by 500%.
First of all, how is a man supposed to tell a woman how to be the ultimate woman?
But women need to be taught how to be great again. Not my words.
We do. Like how to land a husband, how to lose weight, how to pop out a bunch of kids.
Why do men think they need to fix the problems of women?
Well, it says the world's ultimate event for women.
Yeah, Orlando, Florida, that's going to be the scene of the crime. It's mansplaining palooza and say no to the toxic bullying feminist dogma.
Taught by men to make women great again.
Taking the stage now is the founder of the 22 convention. You're in for a treat, Mr. Anthony Dream Johnson.
Anthony Dream Johnson.
Anthony Dream Johnson.
The first president of the manosphere.
It's run by all men, which promises to, quote, make women great again. This course is guaranteed to raise your femininity by 500%.
Together, we will make women great again. Excuse me, I'm mansplaining here. She said there's nothing